Gymnosperm comes from the Latin word gymnospermae, which means naked seeds. The seeds of gymnosperms do not have enclosures, making them well exposed to the environment. And the most common example of gymnosperms is the plant group called conifers. Cone-bearing plants or gymnosperms are mostly evergreen plants that reproduce through spores that are protected by cones. Plant groups under this classification include the cycads, the ginkgos, gnetophytes, and conifers. The tuberous roots of cycads also help them adapt to the temperature of their environment. The male cones produce pollen, while the female cones bear large ovules. When fertilization occurs, seeds that are relatively large and colorful develop. Ginkgos can grow up to 100 feet in height. Ginkgo trees can either be male or female. When fertilization has occurred, the ovules of the female tree turn yellow and become seeds with fleshy outer covering. The ginkgos propagate through germination or through the grafting of their branches on other trees. The male gnetophytes produce pollen, while the females produce ovules that are fertilized with the help of pollinators. The seeds of gnetophytes require a huge amount of water through rainfall in order to sprout and develop. Cones of conifers are made up of overlapping woody scales. Pollen of conifers is carried by the wind and other pollinators to fertilize the ovule. When an ovule is fertilized, winged seeds will be produced. These seeds are then carried by the wind until they find a suitable environment where they can germinate and grow. The male cones of pine trees give rise to pollen grains by meiosis. In the spring, large amounts of yellow pollen are released and carried by the wind. Some gametophytes may land on a female cone. As you have discovered, the reproductive structure of conifers develops in cones. Most conifers have male and female cones on different branches of the same tree or shrub. Conifers have two kinds of cones, the pollen cone and the seed cone. A pollen cone is a male cone that makes the pollen grains. The pollen spreads through the air. The seed cone is a female cone that produces an egg cell. You have learned about spore-bearing plants as one of the classification under non-flowering plants in your previous lesson. In this lesson, you have focused on the gymnosperms, or the commonly known as cone-bearing plants, which is also one classification of non-flowering plants. In 1994, the first genetically modified food was available in the market. Did you have cornflakes and orange juice? If you had it, chances are you have eaten genetically modified foods. You can research for the benefits and risks of eating genetically modified food.